Pictorial Modernism, Pocket Steel, and Art Deco, Chapter 14. Poster designers were aware of the need to keep a pictorial reference if their posters were to persuade their audiences. There was a dialogue between communicative imagery and the form of design. The reductive flat color design school that emerged in Germany is called Pocket Steel or poster style. These posters were popular for advertising products as well as the war effort. This chapter also includes Art Deco, the decorative art style that influenced the design of posters, buildings, furniture, fashion, as well as cars and everyday objects like radios. We'll get started with Pocket Steel. This was, again, created by poster artists in Germany, and it was a very simple formula that was a direct way of expressing an idea with eye-catching letters, bold flat colors, simplified shapes and objects, and a central subject. So this really moved beyond Toulouse-Lautrec style to create a more abstract visual image. As we lead up to this time, the shift from naturalism to a simplified visual language of sign and shape that had begun with Lautrec was continued by James Pride and William Nicholson, two brother-in-laws who became close friends in art school. They were both respected academic painters, so they felt the need to protect their reputation when they decided to go commercial. During their brief advertising career, they were known as the beggar staffs. Now, the beggar staffs introduced a technique later called collage, in which flat shapes of color were cut out, resulting in sensitive edges drawn with scissors and then assembled into a composition. Incomplete shapes created implied lines that engaged viewers while they deciphered the image. And here we see a great example. Now, this idea is very popular today, especially in logo design. It's the principle of closure. Notice how in the figure, the white space, in other words, the background space that is red, is flowing through the figure and not becoming trapped. Now go and study logos and you'll see the same thing where they don't close off the edge, but they let the space flow through the trademark or logotype. Here's another piece by the beggar staffs. It's a poster for Don Quixote. Again, cut paper shapes produce a graphic image whose simplicity and technique was way ahead of its time. Also, just before the turn of the century, in England, Dudley Hardy introduced qualities of the French poster to London billboards. This included lettering and figures that appeared against a flat background. His Gaiety Girl provided London with another media icon like Paris's Charette or the Victorian era's Gibson Girl. During World War I, 1914 to 1918, when radio and other electronic means of communication were not yet widespread, the poster was a major communications tool for propaganda and visual persuasion. It was used for recruitment, to boost public morale, to maintain popular support for the war effort, fundraising to collect money to finance the war, or public support for conservation and home gardening to offset shortages, and assailing the enemy for its barbarism and threat to society. The style characteristics of Pocket Steel are flat background color, a dominant stylized image, and the name of the product. Again, it's a simple formula that works really well. We're going to get started with Lucian Bernhard, one of the most important German poster artists. He was a graphic designer, type designer, a professor, an interior designer, and an artist, quite prolific. He played a paramount role in shaping the style of product advertising posters. The product advertised was combined with the trade name or the company name in large letters and placed against a spacious background in a palette that was downplayed. The lettering used by companies such as Bosch, Café Hague, and Pelican still derives from the models that were created by Lucien Bernhard. His father was well off and a businessman, and he decided to take his family on a business trip. But Lucien wanted to stay home. He wanted to go to the Munich Flossplus exhibit. So he went to the exhibit and returned home absolutely drunken with color. He was so excited that he began to create artwork on the walls of his home. When his father returned, he didn't understand, so much so that he kicked poor Lucien out of the house. So the young man was on the streets. He eventually made his way to Berlin, where he saw an ad to create an advertising poster for Priester matches. Originally, he had a tablecloth with a tray on it and the cigar and the matches and the name of the product and a scantily clad dancing girl. And he decided it was too busy. He began to paint it all out till all that was left was this. Well, he won the competition and this launched his career. The Berlin lithography firm of Hollerbaum and Schmidt realized that an important direction in German poster design was developing in the hands of Bernhard and other young designers, and they signed exclusive contracts with Bernhard and 6 others. This included Julius Gipkins, Julius Klinger, and Hans Rudi Ehrt. Bernhard also designed trademarks and typefaces like Bernhard Modern. Here we see another poster by the self-taught artist that moved graphic communications one step further in the simplification and reduction of naturalism. This was a visual language of shape and sign, and he did this through his poster designs. Those flat shapes, the product name, and product image. He repeated the approach over and over again during the next 2 decades. He also designed 300 packages for 66 products that used very elementary graphics. One of the block types based on Bernhard's poster lettering. This is his colleague Hans Rudi Ehrt, who applied the Placket-Still-Bernhard formula to many wonderful posters, including this one for Opel motor cars. Notice the pose, expression, and clothing signify the affluent customer for this particular automobile. Now, during World War I, the Central Powers were Germany, Austria, and Hungary. And the design continued traditions of the Vienna Secession and Placket Steel. Words and images were integrated, and the essence was conveyed by these powerful shapes and patterns. Often their posters used black letter typography, which was seen as very Germanic type. The Allies, on the other hand, Great Britain, US, France, and Russia, took a more illustrative approach in their work. It was more literal rather than symbolic. Let's take a look at some of these war posters. Let's start with the work of Julius Gipkins. He was a self-taught graphic designer who worked in the Placket Still style. His fluid linear drawing style imparted a nervous wiggle to both his lettering and illustrations, and that became his trademark. Here we see a symbolic eagle sitting triumphantly on the indicia of a captured Allied aircraft. This poster by Lucien Bernhard is a great example of a war poster for the War Loan campaign. Notice there's a clenched fist in medieval armor and the classic black letter typography, which captured the ancient Germanic spirit and stirred national pride. Notice the sharp militaristic feeling that is amplified by the Gothic inscription here. This is the way to peace. The enemy wills it so. thus subscribe to the war loan. I'm sure you've heard of the famous U-boats. Well, here's a powerful poster by Hans Rudy Ehrt, another one of the Placket Still designers, and it basically says U-boats out. Let's switch over to the Allies now. Again, their approach was more illustrative and used literal rather than symbolic imagery. British posters stressed the need to protect the home and family, and the most effective of the posters was the 1915 recruitment poster by Alfred Leete that we're looking at here, and it shows Lord Horatio Kitchener, the British Secretary of War, and he's pointing directly at the viewer and saying, "Your country needs you." This poster was widely imitated. This printed sheet confronts the spectator with a really direct gaze. So if it looks familiar, maybe it reminds you of this poster by James Montgomery Flagg. In his sketch-like painting style, he produced 46 war posters during the 1.5 years of the American involvement in the war, including his American version of Your Country Needs You. Obviously, this is a takeoff of the Kitchener poster. In it, we see Uncle Sam, and it says, "I want you for the U.S. Army." This poster was one of the most reproduced in history. 5 million copies were printed. Here's another classic piece from 1914. Again, we see the home values being emphasized. We see a boy playing with his toys and a little girl asking their father, "Dad, what did you do in the Great War?" Here's an icon of American illustration, Joseph Leindecker. He was the most popular American illustrator between World War I and the early 1940s, and he created a canon of idealized physical beauty in the mass media. He combined many common visual symbols like the flag and Statue of Liberty to promote patriotism. American posters honored soldiers and created a cult around the national leaders or symbolic figures, as well as emphasizing the public's contributions. This one is for a bond drive, and we see Leindecker's slab-like brushstrokes. Leindecker was the most popular illustrator, as I said, of the time, and he followed Charles Dana Gibson by creating that canon of physical beauty for the mass media. He combined visual symbols to convey the iconic essence of a subject. The skill that Leindecker had led to his great popularity. He did 322 covers for the Saturday Evening Post and countless advertising illustrations, most notably for Arrow shirts and collars during the 20s. This effectively captured the American experience and attitudes during the 2 decades between the world wars. A poster promoting victory gardens. It's encouraging public action, the raising of your own food, and tying it directly to the defeat of the enemy. You can see the Kaiser being canned in this particular image. Now we move to Munich. Known as the Maverick from Munich, the posters of Ludwig Holbein, a leading German placket still designer, really straddled the line between the symbolic posters of the Central Power designers and those more pictorial ones we just saw from the Allies. His initial inspiration was the beggar staffs, but unlike the beggar staffs and Lucien Bernhard, he applied texture and decorative pattern to the shapes of his images and incorporated a bold sans serif type that sometimes became part of the image. Later, he introduced gradation and tone to his simple, powerful shapes that made them more naturalistic. The evolution of his work coincided with Adolf Hitler's rise to power. As Hitler delivered passionate radio addresses about the German master race and the superiority of German athletes and culture, Holbein's posters which moved toward a bold, imperial, militaristic style with heavy forms and strong contrast, presented these images all across the nation. Holbein's reputation as a great illustrator was seriously tarnished by his collaboration with the Nazis. Here we see a poster for the Deutsche Lufthansa. A mythological winged being symbolizes the airline. Also shows the German victory at the Berlin Olympics and the triumph of the Nazi movement. A fundraising poster by Holbein with a graphic symbol, the Red Cross, combined with the wounded soldier. This is an appeal with emotional power and strong visual impact. A concert poster from 1938. It features a Teutonic she-warrior looming upward. This is thanks to a low viewpoint and a light source that's striking her from below. And one last poster from Holbein, a recruiting poster. And in one of these last posters, we see the stern and somber soldier appearing above a simple question. And you? Edward McKnight Kauffer was an American who immigrated to Europe to be amid the cutting edge of modern art. He showed how the formal idiom of Cubism and Futurism could be used with strong communications impact in graphic design. He went on to design 141 posters for the London Underground transport. Many of these promoted weekend pleasure travel to rural areas at the end of the line. Kauffer achieved visual impact with landscape subjects on posters by reductive design, editing complex environments into interlocking shapes. Later, his posters tended to display Art Deco attributes. Here's a great example of those travel posters that he created for the London Underground. After World War I, Cubist ideas inspired a new direction in pictorial images, often referred to as Art Deco. This was a term used to identify popular geometric works of the 20s and 30s. Now, the influences included Cubism, the Bauhaus, the Vienna Secession, commingled with the style and suprematism, as well as Egyptian, Aztec, and Assyrian motifs. Streamlining, zigzag, and decorative geometry were used to express the modern era of the machine while still satisfying a passion for decoration that carried over from Art Nouveau. A.M. Cassandra made a name for himself as a poster artist, designing hundreds of posters in a bold Art Deco style. He designed posters for Paris furniture stores, drinks, and passenger steamship lines. Cassandra's posters are notable mainly for the emphasis placed on typography, and over the years, Cassandra developed the following typefaces: Bifer, Acier, Acier Noir, and Cassandra. He had an exceptional ability to integrate powerful symbolic images and hand-drawn sans serif lettering to achieve a unified composition and concise message. Here we see a poster he created for Dubonnet that's quite clever. On the left, we see Dubo, which means doubt. The man eyes his glass uncertainly, and in the middle, it says Dubon, which means of some good, when the beverage is tasted. In the end, Dubonnet, the product is identified as the glass is filled. This is just one of his amazing travel posters. From 1923 till 36, he revitalized French advertising art through these stunning posters. His bold, simple designs emphasize two-dimensionality and are composed of broad, simplified planes of color. By reducing his subjects to iconographic symbols, he moved very close to synthetic cubism. His love of letter forms is evident by an exceptional ability to integrate words and images into a total composition. Cassandra achieved concise statements by combining telegraphic copy, powerful geometric forms and symbolic imagery created by simplifying natural forms into almost pictographic silhouettes. I remember having a Euro pass in my early 20s and what it felt like to be able to go anywhere I wanted on the rails. I feel like this poster with the star in the distance really captures that magic you feel for distant destinations when you travel. Here's a wonderful poster that he did for the newspaper, and it shows Marianne, the symbol of France. I want you to pay particular attention to the decorative elements he's using, those windows that look like Moorish windows. Notice they're here as well in this wonderful Nord Express poster. So this is such a great example of streamlining. The train is absolutely streamlined and it's simplified in such a wonderful way. I love how he shows all the destinations you would travel to at the bottom. Again, type playing a very important role in his posters. Another beautiful one for a steamliner, and again, the simplification and focus that he created with this beautiful type and graphic, bold image. Another steamliner poster. This was created in 1931, and I love the way the little tugboat smoke goes up and commingles with the smokestacks of this huge ocean liner. Again, he's just really streamlining that boat and playing with scale. Here's a very interesting poster by Heinz Schulz-Nudman, who applied the Art Deco idiom to posters. This is a cinema poster for Metropolis. And again, notice the streamlining of the buildings. Austin Cooper applied Cubist rhetoric and geometric shapes and colors in posters for the London Underground. In a series of 3 collage-inspired posters, he tried to spark memories of viewers who visited Paris. And I feel that this just captures so much the various glimpses you might have out your window, like at the cafe, at an Arc de Triomphe, at a sculpture, and this wonderful typography. These fragments and glimpses of landmarks are just so powerful in a graphic poster. Here are some very clever posters by Austin Cooper for the London Underground. He's using color to convey the comfort of temperature in the Underground Railway. During the summer, it's cooler, and during the winter, it's warmer. Just by playing with color, he communicates and juxtaposes these 2 ideas. This is the work of Abram Games, who extended the philosophy and spatial ideas of post-Cubist pictorial modernism to educational, instructional, and propaganda graphics he produced during World War II. Here's an amazing poster he used to recruit blood donors. He began his career on the eve of World War II, and Games felt that the message must be given quickly and vividly so that interest is subconsciously retained. The discipline of reason conditions the expression of design. The designer constructs, winds the spring. The viewer's eye is caught and the spring is released. Here he places a soldier inside the diagram of a blood bottle. He's cementing that connection between the donor's blood and the soldier's survival. So is Art Deco popular today? Well, I wanted to show you these wonderful Art Deco buildings. If you've ever been to Miami, you know what I mean. Another powerful icon of Art Deco is the famous Chrysler Building in New York. It's been used in many films. Here we see direct reference to a contemporary poster from the historical Nudman piece for Metropolis.